Okay, so can you explain how does Spring Boot simplifies the development of microservices?
Yeah, Spring Boot simplifies the development of microservices because of lots of many reasons. Like one of the reason is it provides the embedded servers like Tomcat, so we don't have to do manual configuration, and separately we don't have to add servers and then add that var file to that. So instead, in Spring Boot provides auto configuration and dependency management. So with Spring Boot, we can quickly set up production ready microservices, and with like almost minimal configuration or no configuration. So developer has to only focus on the business logics, not on the configuration and setup part. It also removes lots of boilerplate codes, and ultimately it removes the development effort. Apart from that, there are some more features like AOP and actuator. So like we can easily externalize configurations, matrix or health checks to our microservices. So additionally, Spring Boot integration with Spring Cloud also make it very easy to implement cloud native features. For example, service discovery, load balancing, circuit breaker. So all these things make it very much handy to implement as a microservices.
Okay, so how the service discovery is handled in microservice architecture?
Yeah, service discovery is the place where all the microservices register themselves, and whenever any microservices need to communicate with another microservice, we can handle service discovery using tools like Netflix, Eureka, or Console. So in Spring Boot, we can use Spring Cloud, Netflix, Eureka to implement service discovery. It works by registering each microservice with the Eureka server, and Eureka clients inside each service fetches the addresses of other services from the server. So like all these addresses are dynamically allocated to all the microservices. So using this way, if a service instance goes down, so Eureka can reroute the traffic to another like available instance, or which has the very less load. So it's a dynamic way of keeping microservices connected with each other, and we don't have to hard code the service location where it is deployed. So as I said, like it is automatically assigned to each service, or if it has multiple instances, so for all of them the IP addresses are assigned dynamically.
Okay, so how load balancing works in microservices?
In microservices, we use load balancing to distribute all incoming requests within the multiple instances of services, because sometimes any instance is overloaded, so we don't want the next service to again hit that service. So instead, the all the requests are distributed among the whatever the available instances of the microservices are there. So this ensures no single instance gets overloaded. So there are two types of load balancing basically. So one is the client side and one is the server side. So for client side, we use Spring Cloud. So we can implement client side load balancing using ribbon and all. So in client side load balancing, like each service that wants to call another service, so knows about all instances of that service. So that uses like using a Eureka for discovery, and can choose an instance based on the load balancing algorithm like round robin. So these algorithms are used. So on the other side, when server side load balancing, like what is done by a reverse proxy. So it happens centrally. Their requests are routed to the appropriate services instance by the load balancer.
Okay. Okay, so what are the disadvantages of microservices?
Disadvantages are also there. It is very complex to handle the whole microservices. If it was a monolithic, then we had only one application, and it is deployed at one place and everything is there. But in case of microservices, there are multiple services and they are deployed to different servers, and they might have different databases and all. So these are the challenges may happen. So whenever we have a small application, so normally we should go with the monolithic only. But if it is a huge application, in that case we go for the microservices. And apart from that, since each service has its own database, so like ensuring data is consistent across all the services, it might be challenging. And also the resources also can be the one of the problem. So sometimes we use increased resource uses. So running multiple services can consume like more resources due to the overhead of like inter-service communication and separate deployments. So it can be like consumption of additional resources. And apart from that, it is like not straightforward to debug the application, the whole application, because every service is deployed separately at separate servers. So it might be tricky to trace the issue as service interact asynchronously. So we use a global logging system. So there are some solutions, but yeah, this is tricky to handle it. So yeah, so these are the some of the disadvantages for this.
Okay. Okay, so how do you handle logging and monitoring in microservices?
Yeah, so logging and monitoring, we can use ELK like Elasticsearch, Logstash, and Kibana, or Greylog to collect logs from all the services at one place. So this is kind of centralized logging tool. And for monitoring purpose, we can use Prometheus with Grafana for metric collection and visualization. So in Spring Boot, we can easily integrate micrometer to expose metrics from our services. So apart from that, there are some tools like Zipkin or Jagger can be used for distributed tracing. So this allows us to track requests as they move through different microservices. So yeah, so this is really helpful while debugging.
Okay, how do you handle database transactions in microservices?
Yeah, so database handling, the database transaction handling in microservices is a little bit tricky compared to a monolithic application because each service typically has its own database. So we cannot use distributed transactions easily due to its limitations. So it limits consistency and availability in distributed system. So we have a pattern called Saga design pattern, so that we can use to handle this. So basically, this Saga design pattern are of two types. One is choreography and one is orchestration based. So in choreography, each service listens for an event and performs its own transaction. So if something goes wrong, so compensating transactions are triggered to undo changes. And in orchestration, there is a central orchestrator that manages the overall transaction by telling each service like what to do next, right? So in Spring Boot, we can implement Saga using Kafka or RabbitMQ and all. So yeah.
Okay, can we disable the enable auto configuration? Is there any way?
Yeah, we can do it. We can disable it using the exclude function. So at the start in the Spring Boot application, along with that we can put exclude, and whatever the package name we give there, so that will be excluded. Whatever the enable configurations, whatever the configurations will be there under that package, so those configurations or those beans will be excluded in that. So apart from that, we can also do it, I think, through application.properties or YAML file as well. So there also we can give into the property, and that further we can use it. So yeah, so yes, we can disable it.
Okay, can you explain in what ways does Spring Boot transforms the traditionally complex deployment process into a simplified one?
Yeah, traditionally we had to do lots of configurations and all in order to deploy the application. But in Spring Boot, like, we have the embedded server, right? Such as a Tomcat and all. So we don't have to deploy our application as a WAR file to some external server. Instead, Spring Boot gives embedded server itself, so which can be used to deploy it. That is one. Also, in terms of auto configuration in Spring Boot, we don't have to do anything manually. So whatever the configuration is there under the class path, they are automatically done by Spring Boot, so we don't have to do it manually, like data sources, security and all. Also, Spring Boot is well designed to work with the cloud environments. So in AWS and all, we can easily package the application into Docker container. Because of this, it is very easy to deploy in AWS. So these are the advantages we have with Spring Boot. Yeah.
Okay, what is the difference between constructor injection and setter injection?
So yeah, basically these are the two ways of injecting dependencies into a class in Spring Framework. So in case of constructor injection, dependencies are provided through the class constructor, and in case of setter injection, dependencies are provided through the public setter method after object construction. So generally, constructor injection is more suitable when the dependency is required for the object to be in valid state, or when the dependency cannot be changed after object creation. So for example, suppose we have a class and we have a one final variable over there, or final object we have, and then we want to inject, then we use the constructor injection. And the setter injection is suitable when dependencies are kind of optional, or we want to change after object creation. So in that case we can go for it. And yeah, so in this case, suppose the object is not final and we want to do the dependency injection. So yeah, we can do it via the setter method of it. So yeah, so the constructor injection is preferred for required dependencies, while setter injection is more appropriate for optional or modifiable dependencies.
Okay, how can you efficiently manage user session in a Spring Boot application to handle heavy traffic?
Yeah, so for this we can use distributed session storage. So we can store session data externally using distributed session storage, and um, so this can be accessed by multiple application instances. So there are some uh, common distributed session storage solutions like Redis, Hazelcast, or EHCache. So yeah, so these we can use. Also, I mean, we can do some timeout session management. So long session durations can lead to higher memory uses or database issues. So adjust the session timeout based on the nature of the application traffic. So we can give the session timeout, and then we can also do the horizontal scaling or auto scaling in case of heavy traffic. So as we know that AWS and all, they provide the uh, liberty to have the horizontal scaling or auto scaling in case of heavy traffic. So that way also this can be managed. So yeah, so these are the various ways in which session can be managed.
Okay, what is the difference between synchronized map and concurrent hash map?
Synchronized map and concurrent hash map both are thread safe, but the difference is like the lock is applied on the whole bucket, uh, on the whole object in case of synchronized map, but the lock is acquired only on the bucket level in case of concurrent hash map. So whenever we are going to do read and write operation, so in that case the concurrent hash map will perform faster because only the specific block has been bucket has been blocked for read and write operation. The rest of them are still free, so we can still go and read it. Yeah, so that is the main difference. And concurrent hash map is faster because we have the lock on the bucket level, so at the same time we can do the read operation and write operation also. So null key and multiple null values are allowed in case of synchronized map, but in case of concurrent hash map, uh, null keys and values are not allowed. Yeah, so this is the difference between these two.
Okay, what is the difference between iterator and list iterator?
Yeah, Iterator is the older one, and this Iterator was introduced in the later versions of Java. So in Iterator, the traversal can only traverse the collection in one direction. So it is unidirection, the iterator, whereas list iterator, it can travel both forward and backward direction. Then in iterator we have hash next, next, remove, all these methods. And since in list iterator can traverse both forward and backward direction, so it has hash previous also, and then previous add, apart from the whatever methods iterator has. So yeah, so this is the difference between these two.
Okay, what is the difference between double equal to and dot equals?
Yeah, double equal to basically compares the memory address. The two objects will not be equal just by its content, but dot equals compares the actual content of the two objects. Yeah, so this is the main difference between these two. So for example, suppose we have let's say string s1 equal to new string, and there we give abc, and again we have string s2 equal to new string, and again we say abc. But whenever we are going to compare both of them, so if you say str s1 double equal to s2, so it will be false because the address is different for both. Whereas whenever we say s1 dot equals s2, in that case it will be true because the content is same abc. So yeah, so this is the difference between these two.
Okay, what is synchronized keyword in Java?
Yeah, synchronized keyword is used to ensure that only one thread can access a block of code or an object at a time. So it's provides thread safety. It is thread safe, So uh, we can achieve method level synchronization using that. Also, we can apply that in the block as well. So wherever we apply that, that section will be thread safe.
Okay, what is the difference between throw and throws?
Yeah, throw used to explicitly throw an exception from a method or a block. Like we can say like some condition, and inside that we can say throw new like exception. So we can throw that exception, and yeah, so basically it is the manual way, manually we create and throw that exception. And throws basically uh, if at, with the method name itself we can whenever we don't want to declare catch block, so we use throws keyword. So it's used in a method declaration to specify that a method may throw some exception, so it must be handled by a caller of the method.
Okay. Okay, do you know what is Java Reflection API?
A reflection API, yeah, I know that. So the Java reflection API basically allows us to inspect and manipulate classes, like whichever the classes, for example, has suppose private methods and all. So if we want to test that, so normally in the testing we use that. If you want to access the private methods of it, we can basically use a reflection API. So we can access private members like while doing the testing. Yeah. So that is what I am aware of for reflection API.
Okay, okay. Okay, do you know what is JFR, Java Flight Recorder?
Java flight recorder. Uh, yeah, that we use for continuously collect data while running the Java application. So like it continuously collects the data from the system, like, and it has very less CPU load, so it takes very less CPU memory, right? And it continuously monitors the whatever the application which has been deployed, and it records it periodic events, like how the garbage collecting and everything is happening behind the scenes. So like, yeah, we can monitor it using this tool. Yes.
Okay, so do you know how do we configure this? Can you tell me the steps?
uh, Steps, uh, some configuration we do from the command line only, and yeah, steps I'm not able to recall, but yeah, ultimately the end result is we get the all the collected data
Okay,
periodically.
that's fine. Okay, what are solid principles? Can you explain?
Okay, so in solid principles, S stands for single responsibility principle. So this states that a class should have one and only one reason to change. So that means that a class should have only one responsibility at a time. So for example, let's say we have a employee class, and that employee class have various methods. Let's say maybe some calculate pay, or some report hours, or some save entity. So these different kinds of methods are there. So by seeing the method names clearly, we can say that these are different types of properties. So this is not kind of a singular type of responsibility which is associated to employee class. So instead of having all these methods in the same employee class, there should be normally a different class where this saving and reporting hours and all that can be done. And employee class should have only something related to the employee. Then coming to O, so O is open close principle. So this open close principle basically says that it is open for extension but closed for modification. So normally we should not change the code which we have done already. So we should not modify it, and it should be such a way that it should be able to extend using the same code. So for example, let's say we have a class, and in that some let's say area method is there. So in the area there are two ways of doing this. So either let's say we can have if else condition to accept the various types of shapes, for example for rectangle and circle. So for that we can have if else condition and we can write the full code. But suppose if any new shape comes up, let's say triangle or something, again we have to add a new condition here. So this this principle says that this should not happen. We should not do this. Instead, what we can do is we can write the separate code to calculate the area, and there should be a method which should get the shapes object, and we can pass that, and area should never be modified. So this is what is open close principle. So coming to L, so L stands for list scope substitution principle. So this basically says that if suppose a class A is a subtype of class B, then we should be able to replace B with A without interrupting the behavior of the program. So like after replacing also it should be have the same way. So for example, let's say we have a class WhatsApp. Okay, so that extends social media, right? So uh, now here what it says that when we say social WhatsApp extends social media, then social media extends WhatsApp should also be true. Whatever the methods are there, so they both should be the complementary to each other. So for example, if we have the method, let's say WhatsApp has chat with friends and social media has publish post. Now whenever we say WhatsApp extends social media, so this ultimately brings up the publish post, which is not true for the WhatsApp. So this is the violation of the this list of principle rule. Okay, so then coming to I stands for interface segregation principle. This principle says that clients should not be forced to implement unnecessary methods. So suppose if we are using interface, so that should be splitted into smaller ones instead of having all the methods into a single interface. So for interface segregation principle, so for example, let's say we have one animal class and it has two methods, let's say feed, and the second one let's say groom. Okay, so now uh, suppose we have another class dog, so that dog extends animal, so that will have feed and groom, that is fine. But suppose if we have another class, let's say tiger, so tiger extends animal, so in that case also feed and groom is will be method will be the part of the tiger. But that that is not correct, right? So in tiger the groom should not be applied, right? So groom should only be done for the domestic animals. So instead of doing like this, what we can do is we may have the another interface, let's say pet, okay, or domestic pet, and that extends animal further, and then there we can give the void groom method. So dog will extend pet instead of animal, and thus it will have the feed and groom. Okay, and in case of tiger we can keep it as like tiger extends animal, so it will have the feed method. So the last one is D. So D means dependency inversion principle. So this says that we must use abstraction instead of concrete implementation. So high level methods should not depend on low level methods, but both should depend on the abstraction. So they should be loosely coupled basically.
Okay, okay, that's fine.